All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids from 1 to 92, mothers and fathers, lock up your daughters. It is Matt and Charlie back from a long hiatus of doing some shows. And we are waiting for our super special guest, Michael Bane. And Matt is trying to connect with him. We never know if there's a time change issue between people. But yeah, now that I'm talking to people around the country on a fairly regular basis, I always try to tell them East Coast time. And people like Cheryl Todd, who live in Arizona, they're like, I don't know, it's Arizona time. She's like, we don't change times. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. We do. And this is what time it is if you're on the East Coast.
Hello.
I know we got some people here. And I got to figure out how we can find out who's here.
Yeah, we got Facebook user. Hi, guys.
Hey,
who's Facebook user? Is that Elon Musk in hiding?
I saw a car today. I saw a picture of one of these, but I saw a real one in live person. It was a Tesla with a sticker next to it that said Musk, and it had the circle and the slash through it.
I know you posted that. I was like, these people, you can't sell them a Tesla and you can't live with them.
Right. All right. Fiona is here. She's one of your people, isn't she?
Fiona in the house.
In the hizzy. Is she that lady from California that took some classes with you?
No, that's not the one you're thinking of.
Okay.
No.
You are all over the place teaching classes.
I try, man. I try. And I'm actually going to be rolling out my 2023 schedule soon because I've got now my TASA.
Nice.
TASA master instructor. So now you can. So hit me up. Anybody want to? There he is. There she is. Melina.
All right. Here. So guess who else is here?
Oh, my
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Michael Bane.
Welcome, sir. I'm just amazed that I can actually get through 8-year-old electronic stuff. I look at I'm old, and I look at it, I'm like, holy crap. It's like little magic pictures on the screen. I don't understand how any of that works.
Exactly. What's happening? Exactly. I was listening to a completely unrelated to anything. I was listening to a book called the 22 Immutable Rules of Marketing, and I don't know, this was done in the 90s, I think, and one of the guys was talking about, oh yeah, that picture phone or that video phone really didn't work out well. I'm like, oh, that did not age well.
Yeah.
That did not age well.
Well, it's what you got to expect, Old guys, they make predictions, and I'm moving the camera around because
you're making me sick. You're making me sick. Hey, how'd you do after USCC Expo? I heard a few people got tummy aches.
I didn't, for a change. Usually, one of those conferences. I mean, I usually go to some lengths to get sicker than crap, but I actually did okay.
Good.
I mean, if I didn't get sick from being in Texas, killing and eating all that pork, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get sick at a convention.
That's right. You went hog hunting.
I did. I did.
It was a Henry, right? Didn't you use a Henry for that?
No. I used the 1911 in 10 millimeter.
Yes, it was the TSUS, right?
TSUS, yeah. And I got to say, I have mixed feelings about 10 millimeter on hog.
Okay.
I wish I didn't. I wish I could tell you I unconditionally love it. But I want you to know, I mean, using highly technical shooting terminology, I shot the living crap out of that hog. and it was like a 250-pound pig. So it's a big pig. But I'm thinking, if I was shooting you with hardcast 44 Magnums, I bet you wouldn't be nearly as frisky as you are now. But, I will say this. He only went 3 yards. So it's not as if he ran off and we had to track him. He went 3 yards and then he thoughtlessly died, like clunk in a mud pit. So he had to wade into the mud and haul this filthy pig out,
Right,
Texas.
died of natural causes.
I think because we were getting some video. In truth, there's this place in Texas, and it's called Independence Ranch, and it's probably allied with Satan on some level. But I filmed there before. It's where big ranches bring their hogs and dump them. It's a licensed Texas facility on it. And so you go there, and it's high fence, but there's lots of hogs and lots of exotics and everything around there. But it's like the set of horror film. In fact, the horror film I have in mind is called, I don't know if you ever saw Razorback. Did you ever see Razorback?
I think so. That sounds familiar.
It's an Australian film, and one of the reviews on it in 1982, one of the reviews was it was arguably the greatest film ever made on a giant man-eating hog. And I thought, that's a kind of review you can live with, But I had to, just as we were pulling out, me and Dave Biggers were pulling out, all of a sudden here's like a big truck coming in, and in it is the world's largest hog. It's got like red eyes, and we pulled away, and Biggers goes, that is exactly like a horror film. And I thought, high fence. There are some fences you can't climb.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Is that not rock? I mean, really?
That's awesome.
And you got like two couples are driving these lonely roads in Texas. There's maybe an EMP, a thunderstorm, something, and they're going like, we're stuck. Didn't we pass a ranch a ways back?
Oh.
And then they get in there, and there's a hog, and he's obviously a hog from Satan, right? So he has to eat 4 or 5 hunters and at least one of the guys. And then one of the girls like kills him. But I really just see it as, and of course, then the cutaway, the classic horror movie with the big animal cutaway is as you're cutting away, you see a sow with a whole bunch of piglets, and all of a sudden their eyes light up.
Turn red. Yeah. Oh, I think this is great.
You heard it here first. This is right. Where it began here.
People are actually sending me emails now like, where do we sign up for extras?
Right.
That's awesome. Awesome.
You got to have those eyes light up so you know that there's a possibility of a sequel.
Oh, absolutely. And you maybe have like 8 or 9 piglets, so you can maybe go for 8 or 9 sequels if you have, including one where they sack downtown Gonzales, which is the closest town, where of course that's where they come and take it, cannon, all that kind of stuff. Really good Mexican food. But
I just got to know that the little piglets, are those mini lynx?
Yes. I was in Texas hunting pigs once, and I shot this big sow, and all of a sudden a guy is screaming at me, shoot the footballs. And I'm like, I mean, I don't see any footballs. Oh. And the guy goes, footballs. I'm like,
oh, I get it now.
And he goes, the piglets, you idiot. They go on the spit. Oh, okay. I'll shoot the piglets.
Awesome.
They did go on the spit, and they were really good.
Barbecue.
Yep.
Ron Wayne barbecue. That's great.
So,
awesome.
Other than my insanity in my usual life, what's up with you guys?
Living the dream. Yeah, it's just sorry to interrupt there. Guns and barbecue. It's just a little old saying from back in my gigging days. That's all.
It's a good saying, though.
Right.
What's interesting to me is that I'm eating at a table with all this pork and stuff with the other guys who are out hunting hogs. And finally, one of them goes, I have a confession. I'm like, okay. I mean, which disease do you have? And instead he goes, I'm a pod person. I've been listening to your podcast for a decade. And I'm like, good Lord, there are therapies available. You can be saved.
I think we actually had somebody say that. We had somebody post that here. Like, I've been listening to Michael Bane since like Stone Tablets. What did he say?
I can't believe it was the internet that long ago.
The gun snob. I've been watching Michael Bane since I was a kid. Great guy.
One guy said to me, actually hunting hogs, he goes, I used to watch you sitting next to my dad. I was only up to about his waist. Like, excuse me a minute. How did I get this up? What's that meme? Is like, how did I get as old people are?
Well,
But
I know he probably wants it to be a compliment, but it's not really coming out that way, right?
yeah,
No, it's like 3 generations. I reach across from beginning with flintlocks all the way up to Glock. Flintlock to Glock.
Glock.
Michael
I
Bane.
like that.
Glock to
That's good.
Glock, the Michael Bane story.
That
I
is
love it.
pretty cool. That'll be the the documentary that's made about you.
I
Yeah,
bet there will
exactly.
be one. Ooh, that would be frightening.
All right. Well, listen.
Well-
Before we get too far, I do want to tell everyone that if you want to enter the giveaway for the $400 SIRT pistol training, you need to type the code BANE and send it to meetthepressers.com/giveaway. We are going to have Michael pull a number or pick a number before we close out the show, and we will get that to you. We will get that to you soon from SIRT Pistols. So please make sure you send an email or you go to meetthepressers.com/giveaway and put in the code BANE so we can enter you in the giveaway.
And tell Mike Hughes he should throw in some accessories for him too. That's
We're
the right thing to do. Dude, listen up.
So I actually texted Brett as we were getting started here because we're going to have them on to talk about their new company, the Refined Savages, and their products they have there. So
that's a good name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
What's that? The Scout, the African Scout, Frederick Russell Burnham, said that at the very end of his life, he'd done everything. He's an African Scout, Indian Scout for Cook, lived like an Apache, went to Africa, had all these amazing. He once escaped from the British because he was able to quote the Bible and Shakespeare. And the British commander did not believe that any person working for the Boers could actually do that. But at the end of his life, he said, when somebody said, do you have any regrets? And by then he was a rich oil man. He'd done everything. He goes, no, well, I wish I'd never learned to read or write or had any concept of duty or religion. Because in my heart, I remain a splendid savage, which is all I ever sought to be. And I always thought that was just like a great line,
That is
pretty cool.
It is.
And since I'm the only person who's ever heard of him, except for Richard Mann, what the hell? I might as well steal a line because Richard won't rat me out.
There you go. All right. So we did have someone ask a question. If you have ever, you have chased down and caught a baby pig.
I never have, no, because that reminded me too much of chasing relatives when I was growing up in Tennessee. It had too much of like a Gothic South, I want you to chase that pig down, son, and grab him, and he's really muddy. And the reason I didn't, because, okay, a Michael Bane story, really quickly. I got offered a lot of money from a magazine, big money, to go on the cockfighting tour of the South. And
those are roosters, right?
Yeah, and but it gets.
I have two of them.
2 fighting cocks.
I got 2 cocks.
Oh, no, you got 2 pets. I didn't know anybody who could get me in because it's all crooked as hell. So I needed somebody to vouch for me. And I was living in New York City, so that's especially hard. My father said, call your grandfather. And I called my grandfather in Boonville, Mississippi. And he goes, come on down, son. Come on down. And he takes me out into this field where this guy is breeding fighting roosters. And he shows me how to exercise them and everything, and shows them those long, like, spikes on the back. It's like a big thing. Apparently, my family was involved in it, among other crimes, most of which had to do with untaxed liquor. But the guy's he's holding his champion cock, if you will. And he looks at me, and here's Mr. New York guy, and he goes, pet the chicken. I said, I don't want to pet the chicken, dude. And he goes, pet the effing chicken. And I look around, it's my grandfather, my cousin, my father, and they're all looking at me, and I'm like, fine, I will pet the chicken. So I stick my finger out to pet the chicken. The chicken nails me on this finger, punches his beak entirely through my finger. So the chicken has my finger, and he's shaking it, and blood is splattering everywhere, and everybody is just in hysterics. They're rolling on the ground, and I'm like, this is great. And the guy looks at me and he goes, yeah, son, the good chicken will bite you. And so that's why I would never chase a small pig. I mean, God knows what it would do.
Oh my gosh!
I'm sorry.
It reminds me of when I got stuck by my cock. It was
Go ahead and laugh.
It went to attack. It tried to attack our daughter at the time. She was probably 3 or 4, and so I went out and I kicked at it, and it put its spur right through the top of my boot, right into my foot, and yeah, that was the end of them.
Yeah. I can even remember the lead of the article that I wrote, which was something like they fight for a hatred that was, that was young when the world was born. They hate. Anyway, and also then they end up in Campbell's chicken noodle soup, which is another bizarre fact I learned from the cockfighting circuit in the South.
I thought it was Bush's baked beans. Those beans in a can with those little pieces of cubes of pork in there. Aren't those little piglets?
Well, I was looking at chicken stuff, and there's all these dead chickens. I said, what happens to the chickens? I mean, And the guy goes, well, they're too rough to fry. We don't fry cocks because they taste bad. He goes, take them on down to Campbell's chicken noodle soup. So I didn't really say that, and I love Campbell's chicken noodle soup, honest to God.
So since we're on this rooster kick right now, so that rooster, we were trying to get rid of it ahead of time because it was getting a little aggressive, and we raised it as a chick. And I put up on Facebook, if somebody doesn't take this rooster, we'll give it away for free. But if somebody doesn't take the rooster, it's gonna be dinner. And one of my friends on Facebook, and I don't know who it was, they might be on here listening, but they said, cocks aren't good eating. And another lady came on and said, I beg to differ. And my wife was like, what kind of women friends do you have on your Facebook group? I was like, woo!
That's about the time you shut down your Facebook page.
Yeah, it's like,
right.
Delete. All right. So we got Ron Wayne. Do you have a favorite episode of Shooting Gallery? And could you say hi to his wife, Misty, because she's a big fan?
Misty, first, let me tell you that I love you. And it's real.
Oh, my. Because
it's easy to get guys like your husband, but it's a lot harder to have women watch. So were you here, I would bow down before you and thank you for watching. Out of all those episodes, on a serious note, I think the best episode I ever did of that show was when I took Shooting Gallery to Auschwitz. And what I told my bosses, I said, I'm going to do a show on the Second Amendment. And they go, yeah, whatever, Michael, run along. And I ran along to Poland. And reason I wanted to do that is, and what I said in the show is, I want to show you what happens when you screw up. This is what happens when you screw up. These are the boxcars. These are the ovens. This is a little vision of hell on earth. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens when you make that fundamental mistake, that Judge Alex Kaczynski, when he was on the Ninth Circuit, talked about in his dissent on why the Second Amendment is important. He goes, it's a lifeboat amendment. And he goes, a country, even a civilized country like Germany or the United States, only gets to mess up once. And then you get the boxcars. And I was really proud of that. The most fun I had doing them is before zombies became like, yicky poo and passe and everything. I'd watched the first season of Walking Dead, and it really drove me crazy because they were always running out of ammunition. And this was set in Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. So all the cars are dead and everything. This is Georgia, for God's sake. Mm-hmm. Just pick a random car on the interstate, open the trunk. There's an SKS and 1,000 rounds of ammunition in the trunk. This is Georgia. Everybody has ammunition in their car. So I said, can we do a zombie show? And can I use belt-fed weapons? And lots of things like that. And since no one was paying any attention to me at that point, which is good, I rented an old collapsed elementary school and had taggers tag it like, we are all dead. Oh, wow. And then I hired the makeup artist for The Walking Dead because they did zombies better than anybody else. Wow. And then I concocted some lame plot, and it was a lame, I don't even remember what it was. It was a lame plot. And so we dressed up, we did zombies. We had them busting through windows and crashing in. We had belt-fed guns, brasses everywhere. It was pure lunacy. And I enjoyed that a lot. That actually, I had my favorite part. I set a guy on fire. I wanted to. I had
Stunt guy or
a stunt guy. Yeah, I had a mare's leg, and his homage to Woody Harrelson. And I had the guy. He was dressed in soft armor, plate armor, a fireproof coverall, and a Nomex flight suit, and a full helmet, glasses, goggles, everything that was recommended. So we all assumed the Nomex suit, since it said fireproof, was fireproof, and it proved to not be. So I came up to the zombie and I stuffed the mare's leg against his chest, pull a trigger, 5-in-1 blank, a light 5-in-1 blank, and he goes up in flames, like boom, big flame. And the guy next to me goes, "Holy F, he's on fire!" And I'm kind of going, keep rolling. We don't want to lose this. I'm a producer, so go. But a bunch of fun stuff came out of that. I had this vision and then I'll talk about guns, I swear. I had this vision in a zombie show. And Misty, you'll certainly appreciate this. The perfect shot, I said, wouldn't it be cool if we got like a blonde, cute zombie with pigtails, and we had her straddling a corpse where she'd ripped the guy's head off and she was eating out of his neck. And my producer, my director goes, "Just fine, Michael, whatever." So we got, the person, and who was an accountant, by the way, had her in pigtails, and we got a dummy from the military that was, that was trains paramedics. So it was pumps, so we could pump blood from it. And then we got the special effects guys from Walking Dead on showing us how to make zombie chewing noises. So we set this whole scene up in a little bricked room. And the woman was perfect, man. She's got her head in the neck, and she's chewing oranges, so it sounds like. And she pulls her head up, and there's strings of fake flesh hanging from her mouth, and she pulls her head out of the neck of the dead person and turns toward the camera and hisses like a cat. It was so cool. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call from my director, and he goes, "I'm going to FTP you a piece of film, and you're going to look at it, and then you're going to tell me to cut it." I said, yeah, sure. So he sends it, and I look at it, and I'm like, holy cow. And he goes, "You've achieved some sort of bizarre, sick, sadosexual masterpiece." And he goes, "If we put this in the show, they will fire you. You have finally found an absolute stone cold firing offense." I said, "Can we use the medium shot?" I mean, but the woman was really upset. She goes, "This is my break. I'm an accountant, for God's sake. I fill out income tax forms, and this was my chance." I'm sorry.
So she was a bloodsucker in real life and in the zombie show.
Yeah, so she got it good. Another one of my friends who we had she was a zombie, and she had to go home. It was like midnight. She was like, "I got to drive to Colorado Springs from Denver. I'm shot." I said, "Go downstairs. We'll take the makeup off." And she goes, Nah. I want to keep the eyeballs, so I'll just shower it off when I get home." And halfway home, she realized he's falling asleep, so she stops at a 7-Eleven along I-25.
Oh, my God.
Nice.
And she opens the door. She walks in. She tells me this. She goes, "I opened the door," and she goes, "There were about 4 or 5 people in there, and they started screaming. And they go, 'Oh, my God, it's real, and it's happening now.'" She's going, "Oh, my God, what's real? What's real? I left the gun in the car. What am I going to do?" And then she goes, "Oh, no, wait. See, I'm not actually a zombie. I just play one on television." I said, "Well, what finally happened?" She goes, "I got my coffee for free, and they threw me out of the store." And she goes, "I left big bloody boot prints,
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's funny.
That is awesome.
My career as a television producer has been checkered.
Well, you've made Misty laugh as well, as we can see on the screen.
That's a good thing.
That's
a good thing.
So somebody had said something, and I didn't want to interrupt you, and I'm trying to find what it was again. So let's see if I can find it. Well, yep, here we go. So Misty said, "Thank you so much."
You're very welcome. I'm only sorry I couldn't have done you up in full zombie. It would have been something to remember, especially if I let you keep the eyeball.
And then we have the Gun Snob said, question for you: what book have you written, and are you most proud of? Which book you've written are you most proud of?
I think White Boys. a book called White Boy Singing the Blues. And I think we've talked about that before on the show, is that's a book that came about because I was curious. I grew up in Memphis, I'm Southern. And when I was living in New York City and, writing about music and popular culture and the like, somebody said an interesting thing to me. They said, if you draw a 60-mile radius circle around Memphis and you chart the important elements of American popular culture that happened within that circle, it's wildly disproportionate. It is wildly more important than St. Louis, than Harlem, than New Orleans, than LA. And so my question was why? He goes, I don't know. So I spent 2 years finding out why and wrote a book about it. And it was sort of the relationship between white popular music and Black culture. And the interesting thing that I found out, which is now accepted, which leads me to doubt all history. All history is done by some guy like me. And, who the hell knows where we got the stuff. But Memphis was ravaged by a series of yellow fever epidemics between the end of the Civil War and the turn of the century. And essentially the city was wiped out. Memphis was a big city, 35, 40, 50,000 people. In the end, it lost its charter and had 325 residents. The only thing that you heard moving in the city were the death carts because yellow fever wiped it out. And as a consequence, it became much like in later years, like Deadwood. It became an open city. There was no law. And so the story is that you could go to Memphis and be whoever you wanted. If you listen to the old country song, Night Train to Memphis, it's one of the lyrics in that song was you can pay a nickel and be whoever you want. And that's because once you're in an open city, you have no history. It's not like the traditional southern city of Natchez or St. Louis that had the gentry. The gentry was dead. And so what you had is a city that was partially run by two machines, one white and one Black. And they parceled out the graft in the city and ran the city of Memphis. But because of this weird mix of the two essentially crooks, there was a mixing of cultures that happened in Memphis that simply could not happen without the other antecedents. And so you get Memphis is where the blues came out of the fields, where the field chants came in the city. You get jump blues, you get rhythm and blues, you get rockabilly, you get rock and roll. That all happened in Memphis because it could only happen in Memphis. And, I spent some time with a lot of people in the city that I was really lucky to spend time. Furry Lewis, the great bluesman, Furry Lewis, asked me to his house, which was a shotgun house with 2 rooms, just wooden slats, and the slats covered over with newspapers to keep the wind out. And there was one chair in his bed. And he said, "Would you like me to play you the blues, Mr. Bane?" And I'm like, "One of the greatest living bluesmen." Yeah. So I sit on his bed and Furry played me the blues. Enormously powerful, still at the end of his life. I talked to a guy who was the doorman when Elvis finally talked his way into the Club Handy. Club Handy premiers Black rhythm and blues club on Beale Street. And Elvis showed up many nights and said, "Can I play? Can I play? Can I play?" And they're like, "No, have you looked around? Do you see any difference between you and everyone else here?" And finally, one of the band leaders said, "Let him in. Let the boy in." And Elvis went up and he did Milk Cow Blues Boogie. And the doorman said it took 3 starts because this is a jump blues band. This is a dance band. And so Elvis is 1, 2, 3 into Milk Cow Blues Boogie. And the guys would start that beat, dance beat, and he'd go, No, boys, no, you're not hearing me. I need the beat to be here." And he said by the 3rd time, the band caught it. They understood what he was trying to do. And it's a really good band. I said, "What was the reaction like?" And he goes, "People went nuts." He goes, "People are jumping up and dancing and all this stuff, screaming and yelling. How did you feel?" He goes, "I felt like somebody walked across my grave," which was exactly correct. That if you want to say that single appearance marked the end of Jump Blues, it did. Wow. Nothing was the same after that. But I mean, I wrote a lot about trying to understand those cultural elements and trying to understand growing up in a viciously racist society that I grew up in. It's true. One of my grandmother's favorite stories was the time I went to a Whataburger and accidentally went in the colored entrance. She thought that was just the funniest thing. And for her, it was different times, but I wanted to try to put enough of a perspective on it that it did some good. I don't know whether it did or not. I've read 2 PhD theses on the book, and basically they were idiots. If they gave them a doctorate for studying me, that's really pretty pathetic.
That's crazy.
But yeah, White Boys Singing the Blues, I'm going to put it back in print this year. It's something I'm really proud of. I don't think it could be published today under today's woke strictures.
Yeah, for sure.
But it stands.
So, as you're, as you were saying that, it made me think of Hollywood and guns. What kind of things have you run into in your career? I mean, obviously you're predominantly a gun guy in the Hollywood industry, but how have you navigated that and still been able to be relevant and stay in the industry without them shunning you or pushing you out? Because we've had some people on, at least I know on Meet the Pressers, who have said, hey, I don't want to talk politics, and I really don't, I don't want to go down that Hollywood mindset at all, because of that, because they're afraid of the liberal woke people in Hollywood shutting them out because they're too pro-gun.
Well, a lot of that, I had 2 entrees that were very important. Number one is Joe Mantegna, and I won't lie about that. Joe Mantegna, enormously well-respected A-list actor, star on the Walk of Fame. And I was Joe's friend and producer, and that cut through a lot. Good. The other thing is I did work with the stunt community and with second unit action directors on making them better. And demonstrably, we made them better. I mean, when I first started doing it, I'd been approached by the Stunt Women's Association of Motion Pictures. And the woman said to me, she goes, we're losing roles to men because men reflexively know how to look like cops and SWAT cops, and we don't. And she goes, can you make us look like SWAT cops? I said, no, I can't do that. I said, but I can give you better training than LAPD SWAT kids. And she goes, seriously? I said, seriously. I can give you better training. I said, secondly, it will all be live fire. You will understand how the machines work. You will understand what you need to do handling the machines. And those were enormously successful. I did that for National Shooting Sports Foundation. And what happened is as we did more and more of them, I had like action directors going like, hey, would you mind if we came out and watched? And I had great instructors for actually close-in police work. I had Walt Roush. I mean, the legendary Walt Roush working with hands-on with people. I had Brucey Gray. Bruce Gray came out, and Bruce was like, I know there one woman said, she goes, can you teach us what it's like to look like a sniper? And Brucey goes, no, but I can take you out to 1,000 yards in about 3 hours. Are you good with that? And she goes, no, you mean you can teach me and my friends to hit a little target at 1,000 yards? And Bruce goes, yeah, sure, not a problem. And it wasn't for Bruce. But we actually, my favorite thing is, oh gosh, I was big one of the ranges in California, and it was night, it was dusk, and I'd set up a police car coming in, 2 women jumping out. They had to knock down the pepper poppers with physical strikes, and then they had to pop the trunk to get to MP5s. And I'm standing on a hill looking down, looking into the building they were clearing. And an action director, a fairly famous action director, said to me, he goes, is this your doing? I said, yeah, it is. And he goes, are those guns loaded? I said, yeah, they are. He goes, congratulations, you've created a race of vicious little female hobbits. I said, you're going to use them in your next film. But one of the times I was in Hollywood, which I thought this was really interesting, I got an invitation to a party was held by like conservative members of the Hollywood community. Mm-hmm. And I think that organization is gone now, but it was like Fight Club. The first thing I had to say was I couldn't talk about it. I figured now the organization's gone, but they said, you can't talk about it yet. And he goes, you cannot mention who you meet. You can't mention who you see. You can't mention any of that. And I'm like, okie doke. So I went to this big dinner, and I recognized a lot of people. people in television, actors and directors that I knew. And this actor comes up to me, he's a young Asian actor, and he goes, "I stand in awe of you." And I'm like, "Dude, why?" I don't get it. And he goes, "You do what you do out in the open, and you do it unapologetically. You are who you are. Your shows," he goes, "I've seen your shows. I've seen Joe's show." He goes, "I saw Shooting Gallery, other shows you do. And you are balls on, straight ahead. You don't apologize. You don't make excuses." And he goes, "You may be the only person in this room who's doing that." And I thought, that can't be true. But to a large extent, it is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There's Dean Cain, absolute straight up guy, doesn't lie about his involvement. Actually, we're at a range, and Dean came out to do a little filming with us, and he comes up to me afterwards and he goes, "You gonna be filming all day?" And I said, "Yeah, we got a lot of people here. We're setting up like USPSA type stages, blah blah blah." He goes, "You mind if I hang around and help? What can I do?" He goes, "We can set steel and paste targets." He goes, "Oh hell yeah." And pretty soon it's like 6 o'clock, and I look around and Dean's out there, all sunburned, pasting targets and setting steel. Nice. I thought, that's a cool guy. Robert Hayes, who did Airplane, just talking to him, he has perfect comedic timing. As he said, he goes, "I'm actually lucky enough to have done one movie that made me rich forever and ever."
Wow.
I said, "Dude, I'll give you that." But I told him, I said, "Actually, I think you're God, pretty close to him for Airplane." And he goes, "Not only that, but did you know that I married Cherry Bomb from the Runaways after I left Airplane?" I'm like, "Ha!" But popular culture is a strange thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Hollywood is
That's
just
cool.
The bad part of Hollywood is I will tell you this, and I saw it ruin some people that I considered friends, is it's like a disease. It really is. It's like, you get out there and you're among the rich and famous, and I was lucky enough to have that credit on my IMDb page. One guy said to me, he goes, "You are your IMDb page." I'm like, "Oh shit, I better look at mine." I mean, I don't know what I am. And but my IMDb page says producer, which is a magic word in Hollywood. I produced X amount. I ended up doing 800 half-hour episodes of like 6 series, plus special work for History Channel on some of their best rated shows. So people would be like, "Well, he's probably a gun lunatic, but he's a producer, and producers hire actors." And so there was kind of a friendliness to it. But it just, you want to stay. I mean, you want to play. It's like Vegas. You're on a roll, you're winning, right. You throw the dice, you want to play. You want to be there. You're like, "I will sell my grandmother into white slavery in Ghana if you let me stay in Hollywood." And then you get back to your hotel room and you go like,
"What did I do?
What?
I can't be here. I can't be here." And so I wasn't.
Well, it's the whole casting couch and
but I don't know.
Tiger blood.
High fence. That may be the big time.
Might be. Cool.
I have to say this. I just got on Amazon and I purchased the last new copy of White Boy Singing the Blues.
Okay, send it to me. I'll sign it.
Yeah,
before they have me arrested.
Absolutely. There are some used copies there, but there was only one copy that was brand new. So I'm like, I'm gonna go with that one and get it signed for you.
I'm pleased with the work. I wouldn't do it the way I did it today, but I mean, again, that was a long time ago, and you do. I like the Hank Jr. book. I mean, I liked it. I liked the movie.
Oh my God, that's right. Yes, I saw that you did a movie with you did the Hank Williams Jr. story.
Yeah, Living Proof. I wrote that
Living
book.
Proof. And I read that book. Oh my God, in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, wow. It was fun. I was on the road with Hank Jr. for a year, and in detox.
That's cool.
But yeah, I love Hank Jr. and he's a great guy. my favorite thing on that book is the book's made to a movie, right? I was a consultant. And so they premiered it before the television airing in a New York regular, premiere house. So I went to New York City for the premiere of the movie of this book that I co-wrote with Hank Jr. And my date was Naomi Judd, the wonderful and now late.
Oh my God.
Naomi was my dream date. And so we watched the movie, and I like it. I'd seen a lot of the rushes, so I knew where it was going to go. But I'm walking out, and there's a director, and the director's like a little Weasley Hollywood guy, and he goes like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "I stayed true to your vision."
Oh my gosh.
And I walked over to him and I said, "Dude, my check cleared." and he goes, "What?" And I just walked away, and Naomi Judd goes, "Oh, Michael, you are such a cynical bastard, aren't you?" Said, "Oh, Naomi, it cuts to my heart for you to say that." But that was true. Hank Jr. called me when they were making the movie, and he goes, "Hey, how many wives did I have?" At that point, I said, "You had 3. He goes, "Well, they want me to have 2 in the movie, and they want them to be mixes of the 3. And he goes, "What do you think? It's my life. This is my life. This is reality." I said, "Did your check clear?" And he just started laughing. He goes, "You are so right. 2 wives, 1 wife's a chimpanzee. Whatever you need, dudes. We can roll with it,
Oh my gosh.
So here's another thought I had as we're sitting here talking and such. What things? A couple things in the industry that have changed over time. Like, just to kind of give you an idea what I'm thinking of, the Weaver stance, cup and saucer. Is there anything in the firearms industry changed drastically like that from way back in the day, from revolvers to semi or whatever, just thought process from the Colonel Jeff Cooper days to, current day? Anything that stands out to you that you're kind of, back then you're like, no way in heck is there going to be this, or we're going to be doing it this way. And then today you're like, wow, I guess I was wrong, or I'm surprised it changed.
We were all moving so fast back then. I mean, if you think about it, in those early days, we were inventing the world. Rex Applegate and Fairbairn and those guys had invented the world first. But as my friend Kenny Hackathorn said to me once, we were just talking, and Kenny goes, "You ever think about it this way?" He goes, "Colonel Cooper invented us." And it's not quite correct, but it's that Colonel Cooper invented a world that me and Kenny Hackathorn and Bill Wilson and Greg Moats, a world, Masada, a world that we could operate in. And actually, the most amazing thing to me was make a living in is within that world. But the thing is that things were changing so very quickly. You just got to a point where I worked in some police training, and we were just getting people past the Weaver, to some kind of isosceles or some kind of modified isosceles. I would have said, and then if you'd have told me that I would have had optics on a carry gun, I would have, said, "Oh, come on. This would be a Trigicon RMR CC stuck on a Taurus slide. It's a little gun with a little sight." So I kind of stopped trying to bet on stuff like that.
Sure.
I was absolutely certain, and I was writing some stuff today on the FNX 45, which was a gun that FN created for the military trials that never happened in 2007. And in 2007, I thought the military is going to go back to the 45. And I was in the office of Ron Cohen, who's president of SIG, and I said that to Ron. I said, "Military is going back to the 45. And Ron goes, "No, they're not. There's not going to be any military trials. We've all developed these guns for nothing." And he goes, "In about 10 years, there'll be new military trials, and SIG will win with a 9mm. I said, "How do you know?" And he goes, "Are you willing to bet against me?" I said, "Ron, no. As a matter of fact, I would. If you told me that you were going to take over the world by Thursday, I'm not totally sure I'd bet against you even on that." But to me, this is something, Matt, you and I talked about, and it's kind of more serious than the blather I've been putting out. But one of the things that's changed to me the most is the training landscape.
Yeah.
And the worst part of that is the training landscape has changed a lot, but the landscape is now changing faster than the trainers. The landscape is different.
Well said.
And that worries me. I mean, actually I have it on my desk. I have everything on my desk. There's an unknown Aztec civilization on my desk somewhere under the paper. But just to hit a few points, I mean, just that we've talked about, the higher pressure in the society, which is, pandemic influence, racial animus, there's a lot of things going on there. Increase in unsafe areas, state-sanctioned violence. We as Americans have never dealt with state-sanctioned violence. You go, well, what does it have to do with the self-defense community? If you defend yourself legally, as the way you and all three of us here have defined legally in teaching classes as instructors, and you do that against state-sanctioned violence, you are going to prison. You can kiss your ass goodbye, because it doesn't matter that you did everything by the book. These people are going to hang you. And
to that, you're talking like Kyle Rittenhouse. You're talking about like Washington State, where they had the, what is it, Chaz or whatever.
Chaz and the Chap.
Look at Andy Ngo. Andy Ngo had the shit beaten out of him, and went all the way to court and got through. And the Antifa guy who beat the shit out of him was found not guilty, and the judge gave Andy Ngo, a legitimate journalist, a lecture. Those are things that you have to factor in. And just as importantly, I mean, I feel like one of the things we've taught for a lot of years, and it was really groundbreaking when we started teaching this way, the idea that the criminal interviews the potential victim. And I spent a lot of time working with Dr. William April, who was the smartest man I knew. And, so much of my thinking was influenced by William. But, the whole interview process. And one of the points William made very strongly, and I think more articulately than certainly I could or than anybody I know can, was that we don't understand the aggressor's world. We instead try to apply our standards to the aggressor's world, which is not the same as ours. Walt Roush used to say, I deal with other humans. And I wouldn't argue with that. But to me, we teach this interview process. Well, the interview process is broken down completely. The relationship between the aggressor and the victim is completely and fundamentally changed. And yet we are still pretending it's the Halcyon days of 2019. Let me just give you 4 points, and then you can yell at me. But, number one, we look at that interview process. Number one, racial animus. I saw the most recent stats that came out like 2 weeks ago. It's staggering. We may not want it to be that way, but again, the world doesn't give a damn how we want it to be. It is only the way it is. So we have this racial animus that drives the aggression, drives the aggressor. Secondly, one of the things that we used to teach was that in all likelihood, a person who attacks you, an aggressor, is going to be 70% chance that it's somebody you know. That's gone. It's random.
Yeah.
Something like 80% of attacks now are random, which changes those dynamics drastically. Three, I mean, we used to say, an attacker or two attackers. Now you're seeing groups. In fact, you're seeing a lot of groups. That is one of the fastest growing categories of violent crime. And four, violence is entertainment. Part of the reason for this aggression, is it's fun. I said that about riots. I was a riot reporter when I was a kid in college, and I came out and I went to work for newspapers, and I went to most of the major urban riots. And I was struck by how much of a party atmosphere there was in something that was insanely violent. And I was at the Weatherman attack, the South Vietnamese embassy in New York. I was in Miami in some of the Overtown riots. I mean, I've been in some serious riots. But there was an element of fun in them. And I see that now in the aggressor-victim relationship. I mean, when you see four women dressed in electric lime green colored skin suits, they're not there just to rob you.
No.
There's other things going on. And if you think about it, like try to apply the standards that we've taught in de-escalation to a crowd. You know,
Right.
you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Well,
if that's the least thing, you know.
One of the things that I've been crafting or putting together for my students, because a lot of instructors will say comply, 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 you know, just comply and, you know, they'll go away. But there are some times I tell my students, 4 specifically, where complying is probably not your option, and you need to understand that. And that would be an active killer. Somebody's walking in, they just start shooting people. You know, you're not going to comply. They want people dead. Right. A terrorist, somebody comes in, you know, and has a bomb strapped to them. Well, chances are that they want to get as many people dead as possible. Kidnapping, get in the trunk of my car. And, yeah, we had a case here in New York for 15 years. The guy was kidnapping women and putting them in his basement. And then execution. So if somebody puts you in an execution position, those are the 4 I usually say. If somebody, those 4 situations, you probably want to be thinking of a way to stop that threat physically, with deadly physical force, because those are all justified under the law, at least New York state law specifically.
Well, think about the entertainment element. One of the things that William April was adamant about, and one of the things he taught so well, was that the bad guy, the aggressor, has a job. Mm-hmm. And his job is to rob you, or his job is to take your stuff, or his job is maybe to rape you, mm-hmm. or to even brutalize you. And from his standpoint, all you have to do is go along. I mean, in his eyes, if you even slightly resist, well, you're ruining his work day. And he doesn't like that. Right. But from an entertainment standpoint, when you say, okay, I submit, you can have my wallet. What you've got now, say you got 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, they're there to have a good time. And when you say, I submit, you can take my wallet, why would they stop? Right. The wallet is secondary to the entertainment value of the assault. If you remember just a few months back, the women who hijacked the Uber, and the Uber was in a wreck, and the Asian driver was killed. And so here's, this guy's lying half out of his car dead. And the woman's first comment was, damn, has anybody seen my cell phone? I think I lost it. This is a different level of aggression than we saw, once again, in the halcyon days of Christmas 2019.
Right.
But how many people are if you think about how tough it is to put together a class, or to put together an instruction module, and to create collateral material, that means that training becomes a lagging indicator. Mm-hmm. Training is lagging behind the real world because you've done all this work. Yep. And then you bring it to the market. So that actually worries me. It's sort of like when you say, I'm training for the things that I've seen happen. Well,
they'll come up with new stuff.
I have never seen 4 women in lime green outfits beat the living shit out of a girl on a train. And I get around,
That's true. That's valid. Yeah, the landscape is changing, ever changing for sure. And like you alluded to earlier, the political aspects changing of it, because look at the Kyle Rittenhouse case. He got hit with a skateboard, and they were trying to justify, well, a skateboard's really not. No, it is. It's like a baseball bat. It's like a golf club. It's just as bad as a gun or a knife. But
it's just as bad as a lead pipe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were filming in a restaurant in Kansas City after one of Trump's talks. And as it happened, the restaurant we'd rented, all the Antifa guys who'd been protesting came by. And I thought it was really funny because I was out front and we had another person out front. So you didn't stumble into this scene of a restaurant being shot up, basically. But what was funny to me is the Antifa guys, they were so smug. They had their flags and they were on lead pipes that had been painted black. And one of them had a hatchet handle. And they're walking past just looking at me like, you old fool. And I'm like, inside the room is Mike Janich and all his martial arts trainees, and Mike Seeklander and his top students. And I'm thinking, oh, you foolish boys.
Right.
The angel of the Lord just passed over you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys think you're tough? That little short woman in the room can kill you twice before you even understand what just happened to you. You know, but it was. I told Janet and Seekler, they said, "You should have invited him in." It's, oh God.
Janet would have filleted those dudes.
Yeah. My girlfriend said that you could take Mike Janet and hold him by his heels and shake him. It'd take 20 minutes for the knives to stop falling out.
Yeah, I was talking to him at Expo, USCC Expo in Texas recently. When we were down there recently, and yeah, it was. I got to train with him. I've been telling him that. We've been talking that for a while, so I'm going to do something before he decides to retire.
He is a great instructor. I've been through a portion, like 3 pieces of his training regimen on knives, and I'm also working on. I've got 1 more week of filming on the new version of The Best Defense.
Yeah, you said it was coming back. That's awesome.
It is. I mean, it's coming back. I've got Rich Nance, of course, the author of Gunfight, the book, and I've known Rich for 20 years, and Jeremy Stafford from LAPD and the military, and they're great guys, and it's gone really well, and it's trying to bring back, a classic show, taking into account some of the things we've been talking about here. New world, new times, new show.
That's awesome.
Am I funny as hell? I
said you are.
Yeah, you are. It's not a question. It is not a question.
Multiple exclamation points.
I had an anti-gun person say that in an interview. She looks at me and she goes, "You're not funny." So, well, hell, I cracked myself up. I thought I was funny as hell, And she's like, "You're Karen." That Karen look, right? Remember Karen?
Oh my God! Totally.
Put the mask on, or I'll kick you in the head.
Right. All right. Well, speaking of the Karen look, you're going to give me the Karen look because we need to wrap things up here. So,
oh God,
I know. This is the show that I love because I didn't do any talking. I'm just absorbing everything. The show prep is this. Tonight we're going to have Michael Bane. Michael, good to see you. Boom. That's it.
It's good. That's good.
All right. So what Matt's going to do, Michael, is Matt is going to he's going to come up with some numbers, and we're going to have you pick a number between the 2 numbers. And that lucky person is going to be the person that gets a $400 SIRT training pistol. And how is it looking there, Mr. Mallory?
I am almost there. There.
All right. So while he's doing that, I also want to say, Michael, that I ordered. I spent a lot of my time being a musician and gigging and playing and being an instrumental music teacher. And when Matt's like, "Hey, let's we can have Michael Bane on next week," I got on the Amazon machine and I ordered the Outlaw book. And so I
love that book.
I can't wait for it to come in. I really when people ask me what kind of music I like the most, I can't really narrow it down. I love Louis Armstrong. I love Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. I wanted to play in Kiss when I was a young boy. Like I used to listen. I spent in the late '80s when everyone was listening to hair bands. I was listening to big bands and Count Basie and Duke Ellington and Glenn Miller and all that kind of stuff. So I listen to a ton of stuff. It's kind of what it comes down to. And my daughter is actually she's going to college in Nashville and she wants to get into music business. And I told her, she said she wanted to get into music journalism. So I said, "Sweetheart, you need to write a blog." And I was telling someone to this and they're like, "You have to talk to Michael Bane." I'm like, "Really?" And I had no clue. I had no clue that you have books and books on music and musicians and going on the tour with Hank Jr. and everything. Oh my God.
The world is such a small place. I was talking to Cecil Birch. Of course, Cecil Birch is, work with Craig Douglas, work with Dr. April, Paul Sharp. And Cecil's going like, I said, "Oh yeah, when I did Hank Jr. book and they did White Boys," and Cecil goes, wait a minute, "Are you that Michael Bane?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of am." He goes,
"The one and only."
He goes, "Craig Douglas and I were going to do a tour of the Mississippi Delta based on White Boys." Like the world is a small, small place.
It is.
It totally is.
All truth is in music. and that's just the truth of it. I mean,
3 quarts and the truth, baby.
I have to say that we are very blessed and honored to have you on multiple times on Meet the Pressers, and then the first time here on the live show. So very, very humbled, sir. I always love chatting with you. Give me a number between 1 and 16.
Hold on a second. There are 24 people watching the show and only 16 people wrote in. Oh my God.
All right, that's why I'm going to pick 18. No, that person, you sitting there watching the show, you blew it.
I know.
$400 gun and you didn't even bother to enter.
1 in 16 chance. Oh my God.
Right. It's crazy.
That's why I'm going to pick 6.
Number 6. Number 6 is G-Webs.
All right, G-Webs.
G-Webs.
So, Pete, go ahead and shoot me an email, or I'll shoot you an email. Reply back to that with all your information. So, congrats.
For one quick story, it was
of course.
The killer died recently, right? Jerry Lee Lewis.
Jerry Lee.
And so I'm on the road with Hank Jr., and Hank Jr. goes, "You ever met Jerry Lee?" So you ever met the killer? And I said, "Well, just in passing, but I don't know him anything." And it was a package show in the Midwest, right? And Jerry Lee was there, and Hank Jr. goes, "Come on, man, let's go over to Jerry Lee's bus. I'll introduce you." And so we knock on the door. Jerry Lee comes to the door, and he goes, "Why, Hank Williams Jr., boy, it is good to see you. What are you doing here? Who's your friend?" And Hank Jr. goes, "This is my friend Michael Bane. He's traveling with me on this. And can we come on in the bus?" We come on the bus, and I'm thinking like, Jerry Lee's great. And I'm talking to Jerry Lee and everything. And then Jerry Lee looks at me and he goes like, "Tell you what, Michael Bane, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm a writer." And Jerry Lee blows up. He jumps up and he screams. He goes, "You sorry MF and did," and just every obscenity you can think of. Jerry Lee is going like, "You get the hell off my sorry bus. I'll throw your ass out of my bus right now."
Wow.
And Hank Jr. is just out the door. I go out the door. Jerry Lee throws me out of the bus. Hank Jr. is standing there laughing. Hank Jr. goes, "Jerry Lee don't like writers." And you knew this, didn't you? You knew when you asked me on the bus, you set me up. And he goes, "Damn, that was funny."
Oh my God. This is why they call him Bocephus, right?
He's a great guy. There's stories about him I cannot tell, but we had a wonderful time on the road.
All right. So we do have one. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to
ask away. Do you think we'll ever see a show? No, you will never. You'll probably never see a show like Shooting Area on Outdoor Channel again. I was able to take advantage of a very specific time and a very specific set of conditions. And I'm just like a little child with the football. You give me the football, I'll run. And I ran as far as I could run with it. But, if you look now, there's not that out there anymore. There's not the eccentricity, I might say. Probably that's a good note to end on, right? It's all eccentricity, and that eccentricity is not something that's valued in Hollywood, and maybe less so everywhere.
And I think we're kind of hopefully we're seeing that pendulum swing the other way with things like Elon Musk buying Twitter and John Lovell coming up with the Warrior Poet Society television. Stuff like that. I think we need that. We need more of that. Our stream instead of mainstream media.
I think that's correct.
I like that.
That's the internet right now is we always knew it was where it was going, but when I would make presentations on why I needed to be on YouTube, they would say things like, "That's a wonderful presentation. You give great presentation, Michael, but what career do you think you're in?" "Yes, sir, boss. I'm in television. But I'm, no longer anymore. I just stumble along on the internet, and I'm good at having a few drinks. It's one of my strengths."
Yeah, no, he said that, and I'm thinking, I don't think we've ever had drinks. We catch up at all the shows, we say hi, we have you on the show, but I actually don't think I've ever bought you a drink.
Because I think of you as a friend, Matt, and then I realize that we only see each other in these weird orbits.
Yeah, that's true.
So speaking of having a drink, I interviewed a couple years ago. I drove down to Atlanta, and I filmed a show with Brian and Shelley Hill, and I filmed a show with Claude Warner. And I stayed at Brian and Shelley Hill's house, and Claude was staying with them at the time. And we're all having dinner, and we're all talking, and I'm in awe of everything, just absorbing everything. And Claude says to me, Charlie, would you like a drink? I'm like, Claude, I've seen you make so many drinks online. I will drink whatever you make, man. I'm
Nice.
dying for you to make a drink for me so we can have a drink together.
I would,
cool.
you know, I would love to apprentice with Claude on cocktails, because I'm good on some cocktails. I'm a whiz at margaritas. You can ask. I shouldn't even say that. Dave Spalding in his last class, because, you know, Dave is retired as a trainer, wonderful trainer, dear friend of mine for like decades. His last class was in Colorado, and I said, "Why don't you come up to the secret hidden bunker, and me and my sweetie will cook you pizza, and you know, I'll make margaritas." And he goes, "I've heard about your margaritas for years." So he goes, "Can I bring somebody?" Bring somebody, and I won't mention the name, but somebody goes, "It's the best margarita I've ever had in my life." He had 7.
Wow.
7 would anesthetize a rhino. But anyway, taking him back, Dave's in the front seat. His friend is in the back seat. His friend throws up all over my car. And Dave looks back at his friend and goes, "You know I own you now, right?"
Oh.
7 margaritas to do that to.
I would have been unconscious and laid out under a table.
Man,
Oh
yeah, I'm
God.
a lightweight. I have one drink and I start to feel tipsy. I'm like, I'm done. You know, I can't.
I learned to make margaritas from the bartender at Maria's in Santa Fe. I had to go to Maria's for like 10 years before I asked the bartender and said, "Would you show me how you make the drink? You know, when nobody's paying attention." "You're a regular." "All right." But, you know, that's where the first book on making a margarita, which I think it had an introduction by Robert Redford, came from. So I learned from one of the great masters of margaritas. And,
Very cool.
But Claude
awesome.
knows amazing, like, pre-war cocktails that girls in flapper dresses and you know, guys in fedoras drink.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I
All
got
right,
a
listen.
fedora. Got one up there.
We need to go. This is too much fun. I hate to be the Karen. Oh my God. Matt's like sends me a text message. He's like, "All right, close it out. You be the bad guy." Oh!
Well, I meant
right,
close out the giveaway. I mean, I didn't.
Oh yeah. That's what he meant.
Just remember, number 18, you could have won that gun, but you
Right? I'm telling you, man. There's 25 people watching right now. We could have, yeah, for sure.
Number 25, it was yours, baby. I would have gone there.
That's it. Awesome.
Oh man. All right,
Well,
listen.
I will see you at SHOT Show. That's for sure.
I'll see you at SHOT Show.
Absolutely.
You mentioned michaelbane.tv. You know, it's
Everything's
like
there.
10, 15 minutes of me ambling through it. Michael Bane podcast, now in my 19th year. 45 minutes a week for the last 19 years is a staggering amount of bullshit. I mean, it's like houses full of bullshit.
Oh.
That's awesome.
But, you know, it kind of is what it is. And I'll keep blathering. As long as people will let me talk, I'll talk, which is dangerous.
Well,
That's
you're
awesome.
you're an awesome guy.
Watch for this.
Yep.
You know James Tarr, gun writer James Tarr.
Mhm.
James Tarr is a good friend of mine, great guy. He's a novelist, an excellent novelist, world-class novelist. And he is writing a zombie book. And he wrote me into his zombie book. And he sent me the whole section on me in the zombie book. And I thought, wow, I'm going to get to kill some zombies. Instead, I shoot up an ATF agent.
Well,
you might want to watch for that book.
That they are kind of zombies. I mean,
Right. It's the fine line.
Yeah, for sure.
On that note, I'll let you guys go.
Potato, right? Listen, before we go, I do want to say that we are going to be on this Monday night, November 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. We are going to have author and instructor and co-owner of the Target Nation company. They've got some 3D targets that they call Fred. His name is Bill Dalby, and Bill Dalby is going to be our guest, and we're going to try to get these shows going again. So we're glad to have so many people here tune in. An amazing show to get back into it with Michael Bane. Oh my God, I'm telling you, it's Michael Bane. Here we are. Good to have you. take it away.
I enjoyed it. You know that. And Matt, one of these days we'll actually sit down and have a drink. Maybe you too, Charlie. We can do that too.
Do it a shot show.
We'll
spend some time at a shot show together. And we'll go out to dinner or something like that.
I have reservations at that Mexican place in the Venetian on I think Monday or Tuesday night.
Hey, shoot me a text and I'll throw it in my calendar if we're welcome. I'd love to go.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys there. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody. Congrats, G-Webs.